We are in Psalm chapter 7, and we looked at verse 7 yesterday. We're looking at David's prayer to God during a time of slander and injustice that's unfolding in his life. A false narrative, false accusations are circling about him, and there's a lot at risk here. David's life is on the line, his future's on the line, all the plan and promises of God are on the line. You see, God has promised David the throne, and then later he's going to promise that he's going to bring the Messiah through the lineage of David. So Satan has great motivation to disrupt God's plans with David. And that's what he's trying to do early on. David is putting this all back into God's hands. And we left off yesterday seeing that as a leader, he was praying for justice, not just for himself and not only for selfish reasons, but really for God's glory, verse 6, and for the people's benefit, for the congregation's benefit, and ultimately for your benefit and mine, because we came into the gospel because of Jesus, through the lineage of David. It all ties together. So this prayer is really a prayer that God would be glorified in David's injustice, even to the saving of your soul and my soul. Wow, that's pretty profound. What a cool thought. One thing I didn't point out, and this is just a practical kind of a Bible study tip. I hope that you're, as we do this together every day, that you are learning to study the Bible as much as you are hearing me talk about it, okay? I'm hoping that you're learning how to think about the Bible. And basically what we're doing on Enough for Today is called inductive Bible study. And it goes this way: observe, interpret, apply. Just remember those three terms. And there's different ways to say it. Chuck Swindoll has a great book called Search the Scriptures. In fact, we're doing a class on that book, How to Study the Bible, this quarter. So you could sign up for that. It's going to be live streamed every Wednesday night. Pastor Stephen Montepecchi will be teaching that. Just a basic understanding of how to study Scripture. But you're getting that, by osmosis a little bit, indirectly, as we study Enough for Today. Because what are we doing? First, we're observing. What do we do when we observe Scripture? Well, we ask critical questions. Where are we in the biblical narrative? So in Psalms, we're in poetry, okay? We're not in a historical narrative part of Scripture. We're in a completely different genre. We're in songs and poetry and wisdom, okay? So this is the unfolding of the internal life of God's followers as those lives were unfolding in other parts of the biblical narrative. So David, 1st and 2nd Samuel, I'd have to go back, and forgive me for getting this confused, but 1 Kings, 1 Chronicles-ish, that's the history of the nation of Israel where David's story would have unfolded, and the story of Saul. So that narrative, these psalms and poetry kind of fold into that narrative and give us the inside the heart view of those events. So where are we in Scripture? Who's speaking? David wrote this psalm. Well, what were the events? Can we get a sense of what the circumstances were that provoked these thoughts, these words, these experiences, this prayer? And then what are the historical nuances and the context? What are these words? How would these words have come out of this experience? And what would these words have meant in their first writing? What did they mean to the author? What did they mean to the first readers? How would they have appropriated and associated and understood these words? So observation has to do with all of that. Where are we? Who's speaking? Who's writing? What are they trying to say? And we're just observing the text. And then interpretation, I brushed up against it just now, but interpretation is this. What did this mean to the person penning these words? By the inspiration of God, what did God mean? And what did it mean to those who first read it? Okay. And I like this statement. One interpretation, many applications. Okay. Scripture is not of any private interpretation. It's not about what it means to you and what it means to me, okay? It's about what it means. There's one interpretation, okay? But once we understand the interpretation, there can be many applications, and we do that here as well. So the interpretation of verse 6 is David is praying that God will rise up with just anger, righteous anger, that he will lift himself up into prominence and magnification, and in response to the rage, the anger, the injustice of David and God's enemies, okay? And that God would basically he uses the word awake, but awaken judgment, that he would bring to reality, fruition, the judgment for David that he's already commanded, that God already has reserved, waiting to unfold. David knows God's going to resolve this situation. So he's praying that that resolution would manifest itself. Okay, that's the interpretation. But then the applications, okay, how did we apply this? Well, we talked about a gospel application. We talked about the application of me understanding God holds justice and he will bring reckoning in all of my injustices. What a wonderful application that is. We talked about the application of looking at it through the heart of a leader who's praying for vindication for the benefit of others. Verse 7, so shall the congregation. Okay, now, the reason I'm saying all this, and I'm going a little overtime, is one other point I wanted to make about observation. You want to look when you're studying the Bible for key directional words, okay? And when you come to a word like the word so in verse 7, that is a key, I'm stuttering. It's a word that warns you whatever was just said was for the purpose of what's about to be said. So this gives you tremendous insight into the motive, the purpose, the why, okay? What's going on in the heart of this person? Why is this person praying this prayer? And that's why verse 7 is so powerful. David's prayer and his motive and his purpose is so, or so shall, or, the outflowing, the results. So shall the congregation of the people. David is praying this so that God's people will have what they need with God, from God, so that they'll do well. So shall the congregation of the people compass thee about. For their sakes, therefore, return now on high. So I'm just talking a little bit of study principle today, but when you're reading scripture and you come to words like therefore, or so that, or because of, or wherefore, these are key kind of quantifying words that say, hey, everything I've read up to this point is for this purpose. This is the end result. This is the outflow. This is the outcome, which shines a lot of light into what's really unfolding in the psalm. Well, verses 8 and 9, I'm not going to comment on them. Let's read them. We'll comment tomorrow. The Lord shall judge the people. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness, and according to mine integrity that is in me. O let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just, for the righteous God trieth the hearts and the reins. Well, I'm going to end it there. I don't have any great profundity to wrap up with, because today was more about teaching you observation, interpretation, application. It's called inductive Bible study. Remember this: observation, interpretation, application. One interpretation, many applications. And have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.